before I begin, I just wanted to just go back and refer to the video that Faye showed us earlier, the black and white video, and the one with the woman buying online, 50 years ago, and the change in technology. Amazing, amazing. The part that I found really amazing was that over 50 years, the part where the husband pays for it, that hasn't changed, really. I jest. It was interesting, actually. Listen, I'm going to talk a bit about the cloud and the Internet of Everything. I'm not going to try and define it. I'm not going to try and explain it. What I will try to do is share some insights from a Cisco perspective in terms of what we're seeing, what we're hearing, and hopefully it generates some discussion and some thoughts from the audience here. So we've all heard that the role of the CFO is changing. I think every third presentation this week will talk about that. And we've seen and heard presentations that the CFO is an operator. I think in Rosemary's cybersecurity presentation, we know the CFO is a steward for protecting data. But we've also heard that the CFO is a strategist, and probably even more important, a catalyst. Why catalyst? Well, we all know technology is changing at super fast speeds. The question becomes, as we become more business partners, how fast do we change in today's environment? So Darwinism, for us, it's really about survival. I think if you look back over the last 20, 25 years, a lot of companies that have been around over the last 25 years probably struggle over the next 5 to 10 years, just based on the speed of technology change. You just need to look at some of the companies on that chart there and look at what digital transformation did to those companies. Now, they've all changed. So, Instagram impacted Kodak. You had, Netflix give Blockbuster some trouble. But that digital transformation has meant that business models and companies that were in place for a long time simply don't exist today, or they exist in a different format. So why is it important? Well, we've seen the cloud evolve, and this slide is only meant to say the internet, what it was 10, 15 years ago. The cloud today is certainly evolving and connecting everything. So what do we hear? Well, we hear from our customers sitting in the boardroom that the conversations they're having is probably more around what do we do to grow? How do we do more with less? I mean, for all CFOs sitting in this room, that's probably the number one thing we hear. How do we give more value back to our investors, whether it be public or private? How do we drive more value? And how do we scale our organizations? Okay? So for us, that's the challenge we hear from our customers, and that's what they ask us to try and solve, quite simply. So the cloud, for us, is where we digitize data. It's where data is being consumed today in a different form in IT, but it's not the end game, because what the cloud is doing for us and what we hear about is that it takes that data and the value becomes how do you connect the data in the ecosystems to drive real value. And why that's important is because most companies are in an ecosystem, whether it's a vertical or horizontal. If the biggest player in the ecosystem evolves, in your ecosystem, whichever company or industry you're in, chances are, if you're the smaller person, you need to evolve or you will struggle to survive. You may survive, but it will be a struggle. Law of large numbers, okay? So the cloud is just part of the evolution, and this is why we believe the Internet of Everything is actually the real value to be had, and the cloud is a transition to that, okay? So, cloud, IoE, and the Internet of Everything. The value, and there are many different ways of looking at this, looks at how you connect ecosystems to drive value. Some say 19 trillion. Is it 19 trillion? It might be less. Clearly, it's not zero. It's not zero. There's real value to be had out there. And it's super important because whether you're in Western Europe, the Americas, Africa, Russia, Asia, as things get connected, the models for everyone will change. So the CFO becomes really important because line of business is spending. I'm not sure how many people in this room now have, for example, the CIO working for the CFO. Okay, that's a fundamental change. And the CIO, some are saying, becomes the CDO, the Chief Digital Officer. Okay, we are seeing more line of business spend, not with the CIO, but with the functions. If you look at clouds in your company and actually checked it, you probably have a lot of functions using cloud activity, trying to connect things in your company. This evolution becomes really key. So, what else are we hearing out there? Well, Gartner came out this week. You guys can read the slide. Here's what they said. Everything is moving and moving pretty fast. One thing we have seen historically in Cisco is that most times we underestimate the speed of change and how quickly things will happen. So companies get caught out. These are some pretty good insights for 2015. If you think about customer feedback, here's a quote from a customer of ours, real quote. So more change in the last 10 years than he has seen previously. And chances are the changes that will happen in the next 5 will be even faster. So think about it. If you are in the automotive ecosystem, somewhere in that supply chain, and the biggest guy changes, what happens to all the ancillary industries? If you don't change, it'll be a struggle. Okay? So that transformation has begun clearly. I think some of these are all familiar to everyone, whether it's Google, Uber, Tesla, and what they're doing. Some even talked over the last week about Apple purchasing Tesla. I mean, that sort of consolidation of technologies is happening in the market. These are just examples of how supply chains and ecosystems are changing. And if it's one message I give to the team here would be, as a CFO, think of yourself as the person, whether you're sitting at the board level, at the senior team level, who drives the conversation, sometimes the uncomfortable, unpopular conversation of what do you do with your company from a strategic perspective to evolve it to survive. It's sometimes a very difficult conversation to have. So, examples. Well, here's a small company example. I say small, but in Turkey it's quite large. 2 million subscribers. You can see what the challenge was, what they've done, how they evolved their business. If you are a service provider today, and we had some great speakers earlier this week from BT, etc., you have to evolve your model. Your revenue streams are changing. The way you consume technology is changing. All these new services, X as a service models mean that your cash flows will change. If you're providing it, you're probably going to spend way ahead of the curve before you get the cash. What we call the fish model, for those who are aware of that. And if you're selling it, well, it's the opposite. But you still have different fundamental changes to manage. So this is a customer testimonial of something that we did in a country that's emerging, where it's tough, it's highly competitive, but it shows what can be done. The next example I have is a larger company example. It's on the port of Hamburg, based in Germany.
Here in Hamburg, they have all the ingredients for the Internet of Everything. They have a great infrastructure and one network. They are very well known around the world as the second largest port in Europe. Perhaps they're going to be the first. The port of Hamburg is one of the economic strength. 10,000 ships a year come in and go out. They have one network for collaboration, connecting people, process, data and things.
The Internet of Everything is the critical enabler for the future.
In that partnership between Hamburg and Cisco, there is a revolution coming, a digital revolution.
Hamburg is very keen with the smart city concept to improve quality of life for the citizens, but also to create an environment where they can stimulate innovation, generate economic value and competitive advantage.
The concept of smart city will really help the citizens having a better quality of life. Information coming from the detectors, which are embedded on the streets, could be sent directly to the center so that the port road management operator could really monitor traffic flow and could take reaction in the proper manner.
We connect moving bridges with traffic management to increase the traffic flow in the port. When a ship is coming, the bridge will open. You can reroute the traffic to another road.
I think that Hamburg is really going to develop as a seatropolis.
We have the challenge to get more containers through the port of Hamburg. The technology is the main enabler for this opportunity.
We have GPS sensors in this container terminal. This kind of smart control operations could really optimize workflows and capacities.
With Hafen City, we are developing the most important inner city project. It is expanding Hamburg by roughly 40%. We are trying to increase the efficiency of car use and of other devices of individual mobility.
We have sensoring spots on the parking lots, so you get directly on your smartphone if the parking slot is already occupied. The Smart City initiatives really help the operations in the city.
Hamburg can act as a stimulator for cities in Germany and across Europe to come up with a similar innovation and have leaders stepping up to drive the concept of Internet of Everything and the digitalization of their business.
We make a contract with Cisco in mobility, in infrastructure. I am quite happy and a bit proud that we are in a partnership with Cisco, and it is important for both of us.
So, what's the message here? Well, the only way that happens is if you digitize data. When you digitize it and then connect it, there is real value. But we're all finance people here, so at the end of the day, there's got to be a payback. Right? Otherwise, we can't measure it. Again, you can see some of the payback metrics that happen there. But the last point, look at the last point, right? In a world where everything comes at a cost, whether it's real estate or whatever it is, the port had no more room. There is no more land. It's bang in the middle of the city. You have to scale things to get there. So what I tried to show here was just the spread of how large cities, large companies, small companies can play in this and the value to be had out there. And you'll see it in the public sector. You'll see it in the enterprise space. You'll see it in the service provider space, where they will start to leverage these opportunities very, very quickly. So, some final thoughts. What part do you play in that? What are the conversations you're having at the board level? And how can you help accelerate your company to transform to the next level? That's it. Thank you very much.